You got Mac and Mac, John McMullen and Jody McDonald here with you. We've got Les Bowen with us doing the outside thing. Nice enough. Yeah, a little sticky out there over there in Haddonfield already, Mr. Bowen?
It is, but I have both the ceiling fans going. I don't want to. I hope they don't mess up my elaborate clock.
Yeah. Rubbing it in, Mr. Gray-haired. At least you got some, unlike me and Johnny Mac.
Yeah. Well, I gave up, so I just shaved.
I'm close to that. I sweep it back so it looks like I actually have some growing back here. That's a little trick. But we have painters coming in today, and they're about to arrive. So I thought I would take refuge back here on the porch.
Very nice.
Nice.
Refuge. The Eagles need a little refuge yesterday from that Myles Garrett guy destroying the Eagles' offensive line. Blip on the radar screen, acknowledge one of the best players in the National Football League. Or, we thought the Eagles had the best offensive line in all of football. Maybe we have to continue to evaluate this as we go. What category would you fall into, Les Paul?
Yeah, I fall into the category of they didn't game plan or, set up any plan for Myles Garrett. And, I don't look too far into it. I mean, there isn't anybody better than him. So it's not like this was some, mediocre dude that did this. We'll see. Jordan Mailata is not prime Jason Peters yet. I mean, he's made a lot of incredible progress in his astounding NFL career, Jordan has. But he still has some things to do. He's not. You don't see, if you see the list of the top 5 left tackles in football, you don't see his name. He works hard and he's huge. I think in a game they would give him a little more help with a tight end or something. And I don't see it as any reason to be really alarmed, but it's something maybe to stick in the back of your mind going forward, that this guy isn't quite yet. He's not Lane Johnson either,
No. And that's not fair, but Les brings up a good point. I mentioned that too, Les. If you're playing the Cleveland Browns during the regular season, that's where you start offensively. You say, all right, how do we block Myles Garrett? That's your whole week. That's where you start.
Right.
And you're going to chip him. You're going to help with a tight end. You're going to do all these things in game planning when you're playing the Cleveland Browns, playing Myles Garrett. That's what you do. That's why I think people sort of emphasize specific practice reps.
Right,
but out there.
You say, John, people. Do those people not include Nick Sirianni and the Eagles? They put such an emphasis on these joint practice things. You can't, after the fact, when it doesn't go well, you go, but we didn't game plan.
But Nick knows what he's trying to accomplish. Of course they take it. And they know that Jordan Mailata can't handle Myles Garrett one-on-one. But that's not what practice is about.
But I also think Jordan will see the tape of this and get
better.
About it. Yeah.
And that's the whole point.
This goes back to when everybody said, oh my God, the schedule's tougher this year. I kind of like that because I saw what happened in the Super Bowl. The Eagles just sort of skipped and jumped through the regular season last year, playing a lot of bad teams, and their defense had all these wonderful rankings that we kept referring to when people would criticize Jonathan Gannon. Oh, they're first in this and they're second in that and that. I want to see them struggle, against some good opponents and learn and get better. I think that's the idea, and I think that's the idea of these joint practices. I'm glad they're having a joint practice with a good team, I think that's how you get better.
And it works both ways because Cleveland was having a heck of a time trying to deal with Dallas Goedert,
Yeah.
And if they might game plan for that and say, well, we have some issues. We're not going to be able to handle Dallas Goedert. And they might do some things and bracket coverage and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's the part that's kind of missed, not from everyone, but with practice, you're just you're practicing. You're trying to get better.
Stuff. Yeah.
And that's the goal of it. And that's where I think it differs a little bit when you see, I talked about it all early in camp last. Marcus Mariota did not look good. And part of that was he was playing shortstop half of the time because the backup center couldn't get the football back.
They were using Brett Toth. Yeah.
And, that throws off the timing of every play. And then they brought in Josh Andrews, and he settled things down. He could at least get the ball back. And all of a sudden, he looks better. Yes. I mean, Jalen Hurts could have gotten, sacks. I put sacks in quotations in practice. 7-8 times he could have been sacked. They could have blown the play dead. And who knows, in a real game, Jalen might escape that.
Yeah.
So it works both ways there as well. But Miles by himself blew up 5 or 6 reps by himself.
But this is how you get guys ready.
Yeah.
You're not going to play them in the real games, the preseason games. I shouldn't say real games because preseason games aren't real games. But you're not going to play them in the games. This is how you get Jordan Mailata ready to play the season, and these other guys too, And I just think it's tremendously valuable. I remember last year when they went to Cleveland, Jordan really wanted to meet Myles Garrett.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Big.
He was talking about it this year.
He got to do that. And, I just think it's I wish he did better. I wish he handled Myles Garrett one-on-one.
Well, we all do.
That would be wonderful. But it doesn't I'm not ready to climb the walls because he didn't.
Yeah.
All right, Les, if you want to point the finger at Jody McDonald, feel free. Go ahead.
Wow.
And/or
it's a good
any other media member. No, this is for my next question. For me, Quez Watkins has a little bit of a target on him this year because Nick Sirianni went out of his way after a practice go, and played well for us, Quez Watkins. It's Quez heard from some of you guys, all right, guilty, that he stinks and he's not good enough. And Quez Watkins is a pro. And he went big time to his defense. And then Quez himself here in the preseason came out and attached the word elite to himself. So between those two stances, I'm kind of expecting things from Quez Watkins. And he didn't play in the game on Saturday. Didn't play again yesterday. He's got a hamstring issue. Am I going to be too over the top when I'm going, nice catch, Quez. One doesn't make you elite. 2 targets, 1 receptions, Quez. You want to rethink that whole elite thing? Am I putting Quez under too strong a microscope?
No. He's down to his last chance here. And he's better, it's not his fault that his hamstring is injured, but that doesn't help him any. I guess Zacchaeus is looking pretty good from what I hear, John.
Except he didn't play in the game on Saturday, which even John McMullen couldn't figure out why. He was no-show for the game.
I did kind of figure out why, in that Quez and Britton Covey are both down with hamstring injuries. So they wanted to make sure they had Olamide for first team work against the Browns. So I think that's why.
Oh, really? They were saving him for the joint practice yesterday. Okay.
Yeah. So they wanted to make sure he was involved in that.
But with Quez, he's had this tremendous promise, but he's been here quite a while and he's regressed, it seems. I mean, last year was dreadful. Drop passes, important drop passes. I think I said this when I was on with you before. When I was out at training camp last year, I talked to Mike Quick, who was a big Quez Watkins fan, who really thought Quez had everything it took to get to make an impact. But he was in a role, where there's Devontae Smith, there's A.J. Brown, and there's Dallas Goedert, who are weapons here before he is.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of like being a pinch hitter in baseball. You don't get that many plate appearances, and you really have to deliver when you get one. And he doesn't seem to thrive in that sort of environment. Can he still be good? I guess. I'd like to see him out on the field, and maybe we can find out.
I like that analogy, Les. I always bring that up, the pinch hitter in baseball, because some guys, like some more talented guys, they can't be a pinch hitter. They can't be a utility player. Right. They can't play once a week. But other guys can embrace it and perform,
Yes.
and maybe they have a little bit less talent, he's not going to get a lot of traffic here. He's just not.
That's right.
And if he needs it, it's not coming. Look, I would have stayed away from the elite word if I were Quez Watkins, if I were offering advice. But if he makes plays when the opportunity arises, which he didn't do last year, I think he'll be fine. I think he has, when he was healthy, he was clearly outplaying Olamide Zaccheaus, clearly. So he was holding his job.
Okay.
But the injury can affect things. That can affect things quickly. Olamide is taking advantage because all of a sudden he's starting to make some plays. And that's a good thing, competition. Especially
and they have that big rookie receiver too, right? Who's made some plays.
Yeah, you know who Tyree Cleveland, though, is sort of he was he got a lot of targets in the game.
Mm-hmm.
He's more ready. That Jonathan Nada, Joseph Nada, sorry.
Yeah.
He has trouble getting separation.
Okay.
He's a really big guy. And it makes some sense. He's not AJ Brown. He looks like AJ Brown size-wise.
A lot of guys look like AJ Brown.
Yeah.
That's the trick.
Yeah. But he can't get separation like AJ Brown. So I think Tyree Cleveland, when you're looking at those big back, they got a bunch of guys who are 6'2".
Mm-hmm.
I think Tyree Cleveland is starting to separate himself. And he's got some experience in Denver. So that helps as well.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. I'll ship to the running back because that's besides linebacker, which we'll get to as well, Les. But running back is so interesting to me because I can't figure it out. Figure it out. Other than Kenny Gainwell and DeAndre Swift are going to be a part of it. I mean, and then it's like, but I can't tell you who's going to get the most touches. It could be Penny. He could be off the team. I mean,
well, I think Kenny's on the team.
No, Penny.
Oh, Penny.
Kenny's on the team.
Yeah.
Penny Rashad Penny could either lead this team in touches or be cut and not be here week 1. I think it's that drastic.
Yeah. Well, I was out there one day last week and I really noticed Kenny Gainwell. And maybe that's just a holdover in my mind from the playoffs where I really started to take him much more seriously as a player than I had previously. But he was really running with authority and really, snappy and sharp in that practice. And he's younger than these other guys, and at running back, I mean, it's ridiculous to talk about a guy who's maybe 26, 27, 28. Once you get several years experience, you're still really young, but with that running back position, it seems like fresh is the key word for a lot of these guys. And Gainwell, I think maybe Gainwell's the number one guy, but I don't know. I mean, is a guy like Swift holding something back because he's pretty sure that he's in the mix here? I can't say, but yeah, they've got a lot of. It's not like Miles Sanders was the number one back.
Yeah,
we all understood that.
Yeah,
and you're right; they don't have that right now,
and that concerns me. And that concerns me more than most people. I think most people are like, "Oh, who cares? We'll replace what Miles did." Miles was a good player.
Yeah, he was, but I do think they have a lot of talent. I think they have more talent, aggregate talent, than they had last year at that position.
Since we're talking about running game, I'll tell you, John says a little worried about the running backs. Maybe I'm slightly less, but I think it's a legit concern for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what I think's a bigger concern: other teams' running backs.
Yeah,
because I don't know how the Eagles are going to be stopping the run this year. We all believe if Jordan Davis stays healthy, that will be an upgrade. Truth be told, Linval Joseph wasn't that bad when they picked him off the scrap heap and plugged him in Jordan Davis's role. He did a decent job of it. So I don't think that position makes the difference. I know Javon Hargrave graded out horribly against the run last year. So Carter or Milt Williams, who fills in there, yeah, that could be a potential upgrade. But the linebackers, how are they going to be against the run? DJ Edwards was dynamite last year, and Kaiser White was pretty damn good.
Who are the linebackers, Jody?
Understood. Yeah. And I love John's line. He uses it from time to time. Nobody worries about stopping the run until they have to stop the run. And I think the Eagles fall into that category of, when are you going to start to worry about stopping the run? I think the Eagles will run the ball effectively enough. I don't know if they're going to stop the run effectively enough. Do you have the same concern, Les?
I do. You don't have to shut down the run in the NFL. You can give up 4 yards a carry or maybe even 5 yards a carry, but you can't give up 7 yards a carry. And that's kind of what they were doing in the second half of the Super Bowl, and why it was always 2nd and 2. And, that can't happen again. I don't know. The linebacker thing is really interesting. They just haven't. We've been through this for years and years and years. They just seem to sort of go with whoever they end up with. It almost seemed like an accident last year that they ended up with good linebackers. Edwards wasn't.
It is every time. Yeah. It's an accident, Les.
Edwards wasn't a guy that he was an undrafted guy that they kind of developed on his own, one of the two. And then Kaiser White was a guy they signed just like all the guys they sign every year, just like Nicholas Morrow and, Miles Jack and all these other guys that he played well the first half of the season. I don't think Kaiser White was very good the second half of the season. But, so you got Nakobe Dean, you hope. We talked, I think the last time I was on here, about his size, and he had an ankle injury already in camp. I guess he's back from that now, and they really put a lot of stock in Nakobe Dean, and I hope that works out. They've got Morrow, they've got Jack. Does Miles Jack have a lot left? I don't know. He's been cut a couple times now.
Boy, to me, Zach Cunningham looks better than Miles Jack.
Oh, okay. Well, there's another guy that's, he's been on the scrap heap for a while. Zach Cunningham has.
I think they've taken it too far at linebacker, Les.
They've done that before. You remember the Doug Peterson year, the 2020 season that went so bad. A big part of that was they didn't have NFL quality linebackers.
No.
And you do have to be able to play. You do have to have guys that are better than practice squad level guys. And I mean, as long as Nakobe Dean's healthy, I guess they'll be kind of okay. And I guess Sidney Brown's going to fly around and try to, knock down runners.
Sidney Brown linebacker, huh? Johnny Mack loves him because he plays with a lot of speed.
I wasn't as impressed as some people were.
Well, here's my thing with Sidney, Les. He's got so much more burst and range than any other safety they have. And I've said this with Jim Swartz coming back. I always use Jim's term startup cost with young players because I love that term that he coined. And I said, if you look at the Eagles' schedule, they can afford to make some mistakes early with Sidney Brown. They can beat those teams early on the schedule. Then when you get to the Kansas City, and Jody brought up week 6 and his Jets, what if you're not playing well, Terrell Edmonds or Kayvon Wallace, and you say, all right, we got to get Sidney in there, and it's Aaron Rodgers. But then guess what? He's going to make some stinking mistakes.
Yeah, that's a good point, John.
He still might make mistakes, but he'll be more prepared for it if you get it over with. And he's got so much more talent. I mean, I'm just putting him out there.
That's a good point. The part that everybody's all over the 9 tackles the other night. To me, he flew around and with his head down, launching at people. He didn't wrap up much.
No, he's a missile more than
I want to see some refinement there. I don't like a guy launching at people with his head down. I think that gets you
probably hurt. Get a penalty too. Yeah, and you might get hurt. Yeah.
I just think he needs work, but you're right.
He's definitely raw. He's definitely very raw.
He has the talent, and it's up to Sean Desai, I guess, to see. But you brought up Jim Schwartz, and that's real quickly. That pertains to what we were talking about earlier with Myles Garrett. even though the Browns didn't game plan for this either, but their defensive coordinator is Jim Schwartz. So they knew going into this practice a lot more.
That's true.
About what the Eagles offense was, how it was going to work and what was going to happen than the Eagles knew about the Browns. That's for sure.
Yeah. And plus defensive line, Fletcher Cox was so happy to see Jim Schwartz. That defensive lineman loved playing for Jim Schwartz.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Myles Garrett is probably happy as a you-know-what. So, I mean, that's part of it as well. They have Zadarius Smith now as well. I mean, they have a good defensive line. Yeah, but anytime the Eagles' offensive line gets whooped, I'm surprised. I mean.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But from the other perspective, and that's where I want to go with you, Les, all of a sudden, it took longer than I expected, but Jalen Carter's starting to show up, man.
Yeah.
He is starting to show up. And the Cleveland offensive line is very good, and they could not deal with the Eagles' defensive front at all. Josh Sweat had a big practice. Jalen Carter making plays. That guy, it's hard to say because Javon Hargrave was a very good player here, but he's got so much more talent than Javon Hargrave. It is frightening. I don't want to bring up, because you're seeing it on the other side with Myles Garrett. He's got Myles Garrett-like potential as an interior player. That the Eagles got something there if he, stays on the right path.
Right, that's exactly right. And the right path is, everybody knows they got him 9th overall because of the deal with the unfortunate, the terrible, horrible drag race incident in Georgia. He would have gone 2nd, 3rd, 4th overall, probably.
Should have went first because it was Chicago. If he had no issues, Chicago has their quarterback, right? The young quarterback.
Yep.
So he would have went first if he had no issues.
Yeah. It is. It's amazing how much young talent there is on this team, and it's going to be real interesting. We're not thinking about this now because it's 2023 and not 2024, but 2024 comes along. We talk about the 4 guys that have played together for 10 years, Lane Johnson, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, and
Jason Kelsey.
Thank you. I'm old. This time next year, probably 3 of those guys aren't going to be here, and they're going to need a whole leadership changeover on this team. And I really do think, though, they have the talent. I don't know about the leadership intangibles, but I think they can make that transition. As ridiculous as it seems, you're talking about all-time greats of the franchise that are probably gone after this year. And I honestly think they can replace them, which is phenomenal. It really is.
Yeah. I'm through saying Jason Kelsey's done, though, because I've been saying it for so long.
He didn't fool me last year. I didn't think
he got me again. He's got me.
He had one of the best years of his career last year. I thought there's no way he's quitting when he can play like this, and they didn't win the Super Bowl. I think if he has injuries, if he struggles.
You know what, though? Now he's doing something with Amazon. He's doing a documentary. He's got a Tide thing going with his brother. He's got so much stuff. At some point, he's got to just say, all right, I got too much stuff to do. I can't play football anymore.
Maybe so, yeah.
I think because he plays football, that's how he gets all that other stuff. So be very careful with that bouncing act.
That was a point Chris Long made to me a few years ago. He was doing his, he has that Water Boys charity for wells in Africa and stuff. And he was doing a lot with that at the end of his career with the Eagles. And what he said was, I have this platform because I'm an NFL player.
Right.
And even though I'm a prominent player, when I'm not a player anymore, it won't resonate. I won't get
that's a good point.
Same ability to get my message out that I have as an active player. And that kind of stuck with me. I think that's really true.
And Jason should keep that in the back of his mind. All right, Les, I'm going to take you down a road that is probably a little unfair, but John needs to practice because within 2 weeks, he's going to have the major competition of trying to figure out the Eagles' 53-man roster against his fellow beat writers. There's, for me, 8 guarantees on the defensive line for the Eagles this year. 4 inside, 4 outside. And then you get down to that 9th guy. And it may be 10 guys. They may keep an extra inside guy. They may keep an extra outside guy. Or they may keep both. Who do you think has a better chance to make this team? Marlon Tuipulotu or Derek Barnett? If they're the two on the cutting room floor, one's in, one's out. They're keeping a 50T, but they can't afford to take a 5th edge guy, or they're taking 5 edge guys. Sorry, Marlon, we're going with the 4 big guys in the middle, Fletcher and our 2 Bulldogs and Milton Williams.
Yeah.
Who do you think's got a better grasp on a job right now, Marlon or Derek Barnett?
Well, one of the advantages of being retired is I don't have to look at contracts very much anymore. Maybe John can help me out here, but Derek Barnett?
Well, they redid Derek Steele, so I mean, to me, well, they're keeping them both. To me,
okay.
They're keeping 10 defensive linemen.
Oh, they're going heavy. They might keep 11. They might keep a Jomo.
Johnny, who's playing special teams?
Doesn't matter. You can.
Much like the running game. Nobody cares about stopping the run until you got to stop the run. Nobody cares about covering kicks and punts until you got to cover kicks and punts.
As Les knows, Les is a former champion as well for the roster prediction contest.
You won 1 year, Les?
I did. Yes.
I did not know that. Congratulations.
It's really not that hard when you get down to the
no. You know what, though, Les? It's become a little bit more difficult for this reason. Now with the practice squad, you can put veteran players on the practice squad.
Oh, yeah.
And
that takes a lot of the suspense out of it, because a lot of these veteran guys, teams aren't going to, especially at certain positions, they aren't going to disrupt their roster to bring in a guy that is really useful to the Eagles. But so it used to be the 53 was like a huge, if you cut a guy, God knows if you'd ever see him again. Now it's like, okay, he's not on the 53, but he'll be here Monday. I mean, it really is. To me, the things that really trip you up in that prediction thing now are will they keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster? The 3rd guy will be there. He'll be there on the practice squad, but will they keep 3 on the roster? Those are the things that are really tricky.
But that's how you can manipulate. Like the Eagles don't have talent at linebackers, so why keep talent at linebacker? Put a couple guys on the practice squad,
right,
and keep the extra guy like a Jomo who you like on the defensive line. And then
meanwhile, you might pick up a linebacker and somebody else is cut down.
And the second part is it's not the final 53; it's the initial 53.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
So, once you get down to that, you're going to see more manipulation and the lead up to week 1.
And I wish the Players Association had done something about this in the last CBA. The stupid, we don't want to guarantee this guy's contract for the whole season.
Yeah.
So he's off the team for week 1.
Yeah.
And week 2, hallelujah, he's back.
See, here's where you could lose this thing if you're back in it less. Here's where you can lose it. Rick Lovato. Like the Eagles could cut him. He's a vested veteran, so he doesn't have to go through waivers. You can do the wink, wink. Hey, Rick, we need the spot for Moro Jomo, say. Wink, wink, we're going to bring you back as soon as, we can manipulate things, and you're going to be there week 1. He's not going to go out and sign with somebody else. They've already done it before. Other teams have done it with long snappers, veteran long snappers. You can do something like that. Dennis Kelly's in that category. Cut him, bring him back if you need him.
Right.
Bunch of guys. So that initial 53, honestly, is not as important as it once was, as Les points out, because the practice squad lets you. And Doug Peterson would say this all the time. When they changed the rule, it's not 53, it's 69. And it really is.
I do think they keep Derek Barnett around. He had a stupid penalty, of course, but he played pretty well against the Ravens. And if you're not going to, I don't think they plan to rely on him, but to have around, sure. He's a first round pick. He has talent. He just hasn't ever really developed it the way he should have. But I don't see a problem keeping him around. I think that's quite likely, unless he gets hurt again or something.
Yeah.
Are we going to be doing Birds 365 in 2025 and going, Derek Barnett was a first-round pick. You got to remember that he was a first-round pick. He's a good guy, and he works hard in practice. They like him.
Well, they're not going to, there's a difference. A few years ago, we were talking about Derek Barnett as a starter. We're not in that conversation. No. Is way over. We're talking about a guy who's going to play 10 snaps.
Well, and that's always typical.
He's going to be a great practice squad keep.
Well, here's where at Les Bowen, here's where Jody and I differ with this. We both agree, like with TJ Edwards. I'll use TJ as an example. At some point, you got to leave the pedigree behind and say, this guy can play. I don't care if he's undrafted. He can stick and play. Now, with the opposite end of the spectrum, if you're a first-round pick, you could be Jalen Reagor, who just couldn't play.
Yeah.
Or you can be Derek Barnett. You didn't live up to your hype as a first-round pick, but you're a solid rotational player.
Yeah, and you were talking, Jody, about him. Are we going to have him around as a practice squad? He's better than most practice squad defensive ends, I can tell you. I mean, any practice squad defensive end, I can tell you that.
So that's where, he gets hurt by the pedigree because he didn't live up. No question, he didn't live up to the billing as a first-round pick. There
aren't a lot of
debate.
There aren't a lot of fifth defensive ends who are going to give you 6 sacks.
Yeah,
I think that what you need to live up to when you get into Derek Barnett's career is the paycheck. And you're right, the Eagles were able to negotiate it down. When Derek Barnett leaves, they're going to take cap hit. There was enough future years tacked onto that contract that they're going to take a pretty bad dead cap hit whenever Derek Barnett becomes the next Eagle. There's nothing they could do to wipe that out. That's on there, and that's sticking around.
And by the way, they could still trade him as well. So there's no need to, they need help other places. So
they really do, yeah.
Maybe there's a team out, and there's a lot of teams that don't have the pass rush the Eagles do, to say the least.
A good point, yeah.
And, you can move them that way. So it's a lot of options. But if they can't trade him, he's going to be here. Flat out. They're not cutting them. That's not happening. And I don't disagree.
Did I miss the Derek Barnett tackle against the Ravens on Saturday night, or did the NFL scorekeepers miss it? Because I didn't quite see it.
I saw him chasing the quarterback around. That's kind of.
There's 2 players, and actually, I'm actually stunned by how they've used Derek Barnett since he's been cleared.
Mm-hmm.
They're giving him first team reps. They're using him as a drop linebacker at times. I'm like, where's this coming from? And then Josh Sills, who I thought we'd never see again, gets acquitted from some very serious charges. And by the way, Landon Dickerson went down in practice yesterday. He's fine. So
I was going to ask you about that. That's concerning. He had his foot wrapped up or something when he came back, someone said.
He seemed fine. He was moving well. And the Eagles said if he misses practice today, hint, hint, he will. It's only precautionary. Yeah. But,
they put guy.
Yeah. They put Josh Sills in there getting first team reps already at left guard.
I guess, they did like him as a player before this whole horrible rape thing came up. It dates back to when he was in high school.
Yeah.
He was acquitted of criminal charges. You never know what that means. It could mean that this was really nothing all along.
Yeah.
Or it could just mean they can't prove that he's criminally responsible. I sure hope it isn't the latter.
We all hope
guy,
one thing that Jeffrey Lurie has been consistent about this, and Les, he gives people second chances.
Yeah.
Now, all you can rely on, because we don't know, as you just pointed out, it could be either way.
Yeah.
It's the best system we have. He gets acquitted.
Right.
That's all you can do. I think that's the way the Eagles look at it.
Yeah.
And it's like, whether you go to Michael Vick, the most notable, but even Riley Cooper with his issues and Deshaun Jackson, you remember Jeffrey's anti-Semitic stuff, and Jeffrey's obviously, that could have upset Jeffrey Lurie a lot, and he gave him another chance. He's been pretty consistent with that. He will give
to
people
a point, but they don't have that. I saw a list last week of arrests by team for the last, 10 years, 15 years. And the Eagles were tied for the bottom.
Tied for last. Yeah,
They don't.
Well, that's a good point, because
this
Daryl
is something
Worley's
that happened years and
last
years
one.
ago. Nothing better happened while he's here. You remember that? Who was that corner?
Daryl Worley. Yeah, they got rid of him right away. Away. And who's the kickoff return? Josh Hubb. Remember that? Was the last. That was the last straw. So, but Jeff Stoutland clearly likes Josh Sills as a football player. Clearly, that's how he lost the roster challenge last year. I came in second, Les, because I picked Jack Anderson over Josh Sills.
Well, I liked Jack Anderson. Hey, he played well. He's playing somewhere now, I think.
He was with the Giants.
Yeah.
So, those Stoutland guys get picked up.
They do. That is absolutely the case. Yeah.
And that's pretty smart around the National Football League. And John, just to answer your question about what the Eagles are doing with Derek Barnett, 2 words, or is it 1 word? Showcase. That's what it is.
Possible.
That's a good
They're
thought.
trying to let people get some tape on Derek Barnett. Oh, yeah, maybe we should give up that day 3 pick to get our hands on Derek Barnett. That's
very possible. I thought,
or that linebacker that's a bubble guy for our team that might help the Eagles.
Yeah.
We shall see. Les, always a pleasure, bud. Go make sure the painters aren't stealing anything from the house. Your job is to keep the painters in line from here on in.
Bowen on the Birds. Listen to the podcast.
Yeah, we'll have John McMullen this Thursday.
Oh man, that's must see. That's must see stuff.
Less trying to drive listeners away.
He'll be following up Tim McManus, so he's got big shoes to fill.
T-Mac,
very nice. Les, always a pleasure, brother. Thanks for hopping in with us today.
Thanks, Les.
Les Bowen on the Birds podcast, where you get your better podcasts these days. All right, McMullen and McDonald coming back. I got a couple of quote unquote national questions for John. A couple of big name running backs finally inked deals yesterday. One has an immediate, as in game.
Jody's excited about one of them, I would think.
Yeah, if he doesn't get suspended. But we'll talk about all of that when we come back. McMullen and McDonald here with Young Birds 365.